Welcome to Max Premieres. This March arrives loaded with series you won't be able to ignore. There are definitive endings to stories that have been with us for years, superhero comebacks that change everything, dramas that will break your heart, and thrillers that will keep you glued to the screen from the first chapter. 13 series, different platforms, genres for everyone. But before we start the video, it would help me a lot if you took a moment to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your kind support. Number 10. Vladimir. A middle-aged university professor leads an orderly, respected, and predictable life, until a young and charismatic new colleague arrives on campus and everything starts to unravel in ways she didn't see coming. Rachel Weisz stars in this limited series based on Julia May Jonas's novel, and from the very first episode makes it clear that this is not a simple story about obsession. It is an uncomfortable exploration of power, desire, aging, and the unwritten rules that govern who is allowed to want whom in academic spaces. Leo Woodall and John Slattery complete a triangle that gets more complicated with every chapter. The series moves at its own pace, with half-hour episodes, which gives each scene an almost literary density. It is not a series that shouts its answers at you, it hints at them and lets you work them out on your own. If you can handle moral ambiguity and prefer character-driven stories over action, Vladimir will stay with you long after the final episode. Number 9. The Comeback, Season 3. Valerie Cherish never gives up. That is what makes her unbearable. That is also what makes her impossible not to love. Lisa Kudrow returns for the third and final time to a role many consider one of the best of her career, and she does it 10 years after the second season with a premise that couldn't be more current. Valerie lands a part in the first sitcom ever written by artificial intelligence. The comedy works the way it always has, with a camera following Valerie through every uncomfortable moment, every public humiliation, and every small triumph she magnifies as if it were an Oscar. Andrew Scott, known for Fleabag and Ripley, joins the cast as a studio head, and the chemistry with Kudrow promises sparks from the very first episode. It is a series that laughs at Hollywood with the affection of someone who knows it from the inside. The ending of a story that started 20 years ago deserves a proper goodbye. Number 8. Scarpetta. Kay Scarpetta was one of the most important chief medical examiners in the country. Then, something happened, and she disappeared from the map. Years later, she returns to investigate a murder nobody else wants to touch, carrying a past that still won't let her go. Nicole Kidman takes this classic character from Patricia Cornwell's novels and rebuilds her from the inside out, moving between two timelines: the 90s, when Scarpetta was at the top of her career, and the present, where she tries to recover something of what she lost. Jamie Lee Curtis, Bobby Cannavale, Simon Baker, and Ariana DeBose complete a cast without a single weak link. The series already has a second season confirmed, which speaks to the confidence Prime Video has placed in this project. Visually dark and precise, with an atmosphere that sits between the classic procedural and the modern psychological thriller. One of the most solid bets of the month. Number 7. Virgin River, Season 7. Mel and Jack finally made it to the altar. After 6 seasons of complicated love, buried secrets, and crises that seemed insurmountable, the 7th season picks them up exactly where the previous finale left them, newlyweds with everything ahead of them. But Virgin River never lets its characters breathe for too long. This season brings an adoption story that won't be easy, mysteries surrounding Charmaine that have been building for seasons, and the everyday life of the town with its usual dramas. All 10 episodes drop together on March 12th, so those who prefer to binge have the perfect week locked in. The series remains one of Netflix's most consistent romantic dramas, not because it reinvents anything, but because it knows exactly what it is and does it well. If you're already invested in Mel and Jack's story, this season will give you exactly what you're looking for. Number 6. Imperfect Women. 3 women have been friends for decades. They know each other better than they know themselves, or so they think. When a crime shakes them all at once, that friendship starts showing cracks that were always there, but that nobody wanted to see. Elizabeth Moss, Kerry Washington, and Kate Mara form one of the most powerful female casts streaming has assembled in a long time, and the series based on Araminta Hall's novel gives them the material they need: guilt, betrayal, decades-old secrets, and the question of whether you truly know the people you love most. The first 2 episodes arrive on March 18th, and then the series moves to a weekly release on Wednesdays through the end of April. The good news is that Apple TV Plus is betting hard on this kind of thriller, built around complex female characters, something audiences have been asking for since Big Little Lies. The bad news is that the weekly wait is going to be tough. Number 5. For All Mankind, Season 5. In this version of history, the space race never ended, and the consequences of that have been building across 5 seasons in ways no viewer could have predicted. The 5th season picks up after the Goldilocks asteroid heist. Happy Valley is now a thriving colony on Mars, but prosperity brings its own wars. Earth demands order and control over what was built up there, and the colonists are not willing to give up what they consider theirs. It is the classic friction between those who give orders from far away and those who live with the consequences firsthand. For All Mankind has been for 5 seasons, one of the smartest and least talked about series in all of streaming, one that doesn't need constant action to keep you hooked because its characters and moral dilemmas are enough. 10 weekly episodes on Fridays starting March 27th. If you've never started it, you still have time. Number 4. Outlander, Season 8. Jamie and Claire Fraser have survived wars, time travel, betrayals, and separations that seemed final. 12 years after Sam Heughan and Catriona Balfe made these characters their own, the story comes to an end. The 8th season finds them back at Fraser's Ridge, now a flourishing settlement, just as the American Revolutionary War decides to follow them home. Beyond the enemies outside, it is the secrets within that threaten to destroy what they built. A prophecy about Jamie's death hangs over every episode like a cloud that won't lift. The producers filmed multiple endings to keep the secret until the very last moment, and even the lead actors didn't know which one would be used until it was finalized. 10 weekly episodes on Fridays, with the finale on May 8th. For fans of 12 years, this is the ending they deserve. For those who never watched it, the full saga is available and absolutely worth the journey. Number 3. Invincible, Season 4. Mark Grayson is no longer the kid who discovered his powers without knowing what to do with them. He is a superhero who carried the weight of his own father's betrayal, survived interdimensional wars, and now has to face the most brutal threat the Viltrumite Empire has ever sent to Earth. Thrag is not just any villain. He is the Grand Regent of the Viltrum Empire, a being trained from birth to be the most perfect killing machine his race has ever produced. And in the comics, his arrival marks exactly the point where the series becomes impossible to put down. Lee Pace voices him with a gravity that makes every scene feel like a real threat. On top of Thrag, Dinosaurus and Universa arrive to make things even more chaotic for Mark. 3 episodes on March 18th and then weekly on Wednesdays. Invincible is still the best superhero series in streaming right now, and this season is here to prove it. Number 2. One Piece, Season 2. The first season of One Piece proved that adapting the best-selling manga in history was not an impossible mission. It was a mission that required respect, ambition, and the courage not to take shortcuts. Netflix pulled it off, and the result was one of the biggest surprises of that year. Now the second season takes Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates to the Grand Line, the most dangerous and extraordinary sea route in the world, with new arcs that fans of the manga will recognize immediately: Logtown, Reverse Mountain, and Drum Island. The series subtitles this chapter Into the Grand Line and brings new additions to the cast, including Michaela Hoover as Tony Chopper and Joe Manganiello as Sir Crocodile. The mix of action, humor, and emotion that made the first season work is back, but now with the confidence of a team that already knows it can deliver. March 10th cannot come soon enough. Number 1. Daredevil, Born Again, Season 2. Matt Murdock doesn't have an army. He doesn't have billion-dollar technology or armor. He has his fists, his faith, and a city that is being destroyed from within by the man who swore to protect it. Wilson Fisk arrived at the New York City mayor's office with a calculated smile and an agenda nobody sees coming, and now he uses the full power of the state to turn Daredevil into public enemy number 1. Charlie Cox returns to prove once again why this character belongs to him. Every fight scene, every moment of moral doubt, every instant where Matt Murdock has to choose between the man he is and the man the city needs. But the biggest news of this season isn't Fisk, it's that Kristen Ritter returns as Jessica Jones for the first time since 2019, almost 6 years after her series ended. 8 episodes that promise to be the darkest and most cinematic of the franchise. Season 3 is already confirmed for March of next year. Daredevil. Born Again shares the top spot with no one this month. This month arrives with a lineup that has no weak spots. Cult horror in shopping malls, explosive sequels that have been years in the making, heartbreaking dramas, science fiction filmed in IMAX, and the most ambitious family fantasy of the year. Number 10. Scream 7. Sidney Prescott thought it was all over. After surviving Ghostface on multiple occasions, she built a quiet life in Pine Grove, far from everything. She has a daughter, Tatum, and for the first time in decades, she feels like the danger is behind her. Then Ghostface comes back. A new killer emerges in her own town, and this time the target is the person she loves most. What makes this 7th installment special is the return of Neve Campbell as Sydney after her absence in the 6th film due to a salary dispute. Courtney Cox and David Arquette also return, along with Matthew Lillard in a role whose nature is still under wraps. The director is Kevin Williamson, the original creator of the franchise, who writes and directs for the first time in the saga. Isabel May from Yellowstone plays Sydney's daughter, and Joel McHale appears as her husband. If the trailer is any indication, this installment has a lot of the DNA of the first film. Real suspense, characters we've known for 30 years, and a ghost face that feels genuinely threatening. Pre-sales suggest it could be the best box office debut in the entire franchise's history. Number 9. Forbidden Fruits. Apple works at Free Eden, a clothing store in a shopping mall that looks like it came straight out of a millennial dream. Linen garments, crystals, essential oils, and a wellness guru aesthetic. What nobody knows is that Apple, after the doors close, goes down to the basement with her coworkers Cherry and Fig to celebrate the rituals of their witch cult. Everything runs perfectly until Pumpkin arrives, a new employee who starts asking questions she shouldn't. Director Meredith Alloway makes her feature-length debut with a completely unique visual style that blends cult horror with a critique of performative wellness culture. The film had its world premiere at the SXSW Festival before hitting theaters. The cast brings together some of the most interesting actresses working right now. Lily Reinhardt as Apple, Victoria Pedretti as Cherry, Alexandra Shipp as Fig, Lola Tung as Pumpkin, and Gabrielle Union in a supporting role. Emma Chamberlain also appears in her acting debut. It's strange, stylized, and completely unexpected. It might be too weird for some tastes, but if you like films that don't look like anything you've seen before, this one has all the makings. Number 8. Hoppers. A group of scientists discovers how to transfer human consciousness into ultra-realistic robotic animal bodies, allowing people to communicate with animals as if they were one of them. Mabel is a teenager who loves animals and seizes that technology to slip into the body of a beaver and discover that the animal world is far more complex and vibrant than any human ever imagined. What starts as an adventure becomes a mission when she meets King George, the beaver leader, and together they have to stop the plans of Mayor Jerry Generazzo, a real estate developer threatening to destroy the habitat of hundreds of species. Pixar presents this as their 30th film, and the tone they're going for blends science fiction with adventure comedy in the style of Avatar and Mission. Impossible but for the whole family. It's directed by Daniel Chong, creator of We Bare Bears. The voice cast includes Piper Curda, Bobby Moynihan, John Hamm as the villain, and Meryl Streep as the Insect Queen. In a year where Pixar also has Toy Story 5, Hoppers arrives first with a completely original premise. Everything points to this being one of the surprises of the year. Number 7. The Magic Faraway Tree. A modern family goes through a financial crisis and is forced to move to the English countryside. The parents are stressed, the 3 kids don't want to be there, and everything feels like a disaster. But when the children explore the nearby forest, they discover something that shouldn't exist, a gigantic tree that reaches up into the clouds and has its own inhabitants. They meet Moonface, Silky, Dame Washalot, and the Saucepan Man, and discover that at the top of the tree there are portals to completely different lands, each with its own rules and dangers. The screenplay is by Simon Farnaby, the same writer behind Paddington 2 and Wonka, which already says a lot about the kind of humor and heart this film has. It's directed by Ben Gregor. The cast includes Andrew Garfield and Claire Foy as the parents, Nicola Coughlan as the fairy Silky, Rebecca Ferguson as the villain Dame Snap, and Jessica Gunning as Dame Washalot. The film is based on Enid Blyton's books, one of the best-selling children's series in British history. It has exactly the right balance between adult imagination and childlike wonder that makes these kinds of films work for the whole family. Number 6. They Will Kill You. A desperate woman answers a job listing to work as a housekeeper in a luxury high-rise in New York City. The building is imposing, the residents are eccentric, and everything seems too good to be true because it is. Before long, she starts discovering that this community has decades of unsolved disappearances, and that rumors point to a satanic cult operating from within. And then they tell her point blank, she is the next sacrifice. The building's rules are clear. If you live here, you pay with your life to maintain the community's power. What follows mixes visceral horror, dark comedy, and action that's been compared to Ready or Not and The Raid. It's directed by Kirill Sokolov, known for the Russian film Why Don't You Just Die, which has exactly that same DNA of over-the-top violence with black humor. The production is by Andy and Barbara Muschietti, the same duo behind IT and The Flash. Zazie Beetz leads the cast alongside Patricia Arquette, Myha'la, Tom Felton, and Heather Graham. The trailer turned Beetz into one of the most talked about action leads of the year, one of the most interesting horror bets of this first quarter. Number 5. Reminders of Him. Kenna made a mistake that cost her 7 years of her life. A car accident that killed her boyfriend Scotty sent her to prison, separating her from the daughter she'd had only a few months before she was arrested. Now she's free, back in the town where it all happened, with one single goal: to meet Diem, the daughter she was never able to raise. The problem is that the girl's grandparents, Scotty's parents, do everything in their power to keep them apart. The only person who gives her a chance is Ledger, a former NFL player who now runs a bar and had a close connection to Scotty. What starts as an uncomfortable alliance turns into something far more complicated. The film is based on Colleen Hoover's novel, which sold over 6 million copies in the United States and has been translated into 45 languages. Micah Monroe stars as Kenna, alongside Tyreek Withers as Ledger, Rudy Pankow as the ghost of Scotty, Lauren Graham and Bradley Whitford as the grandparents, and Lainey Wilson in her acting debut. Emotional, well-built, and with a premise that doesn't chase easy romance but something far more real and painful. For Colleen Hoover fans, this is the adaptation they've been waiting for. Number 4. Ready or Not 2. Here I Come. Exactly where the first one ended, that's where this one begins. Grace survived the Ladamus family, watched them explode at dawn, still wearing her blood-soaked wedding dress, and thought the nightmare was over. Seconds later, she wakes up, handcuffed to her younger sister, Faith, in the middle of a fog-covered golf course, and 4 black SUVs are closing in fast. The rules have escalated. It's no longer just one family hunting her, it's 4 powerful families competing for a throne of global control, and whoever kills Grace becomes the leader of everything. The lawyer, played by Elijah Wood, explains the rules with that unnerving calm that went viral in the trailer. Samara Weaving returns as Grace, alongside Catherine Newton as her sister Faith. The cast is reinforced by Sarah Michelle Gellar as the villain, David Cronenberg, Kevin Durand, and Nestor Carbonell. Directors Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette return with the same DNA of chaos, humor, and violence that made the original work. The official trailer racked up over 5 million views in a matter of days. Grace is done running. Now she's coming for everything. Number 3. The Bride. Chicago, the 1930s. A woman dies. But that's not the end. It's the beginning of everything. Frankenstein's monster, played by Christian Bale, convinces the eccentric doctor Euphronius to bring her back to life. And it works. The bride, played by Jessie Buckley, wakes up with no memories, no name, and no notion of who she was or what she's supposed to be now. What follows is a chase through jazz-era Chicago, complete with musical numbers, police pursuits, violence, and existential questions that have no easy answers. Maggie Gyllenhaal writes and directs with tremendous creative freedom. She blends classic noir with something entirely contemporary and builds a character who refuses to be defined solely in relation to the monster who wants her. The budget is around $80 million, and it was filmed entirely with IMAX certified cameras. The cast also includes Penelope Cruz as a mysterious figure from the underworld, Annette Bening as the scientist, and Jake Gyllenhaal in a supporting role. Loosely inspired by the 1935 Bride of Frankenstein, with Maggie Gyllenhaal taking the story somewhere entirely her own. Bold, strange, and visually extraordinary. Number 2. Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. 4 years after the end of the series, Tommy Shelby is back, not as the man who built a criminal empire from the ashes of Birmingham after World War I, but as someone completely broken. He lives alone in a large, silent mansion, medicating himself, with no contact with his family, in a kind of purgatory of his own making. Then the news arrives. His son Duke, played by Barry Keoghan, is running the Peaky Blinders like it's 1919 all over again, and he's gotten involved with a very dangerous fascist named Beckett, played by Tim Roth, who has deep connections to Nazism in the middle of World War II. Tommy has to come out of exile to save his son and literally his country. The setting is Birmingham in 1940, with the city being bombed and the war as an absolute backdrop. Cillian Murphy reprises the role that earned him worldwide recognition, alongside Rebecca Ferguson as a mysterious new character, Stephen Graham, Sophie Rundle, and Tim Roth. The screenplay is by original creator Stephen Knight, and it's directed by Tom Harper. The soundtrack features contributions from Nick Cave and Fontaine's DC. 4 years waiting for this return. By order of the Peaky Blinders. Number 1. Project Hail Mary. Ryland Grace wakes up alone on a spaceship almost 12 light years from Earth. He doesn't remember who he is, he doesn't know how he got there, and the other 2 members of his crew are dead. As his memories return in fragments, he pieces together the truth. He's a middle school science teacher turned emergency astronaut sent on a suicide mission because the sun is dying. An unknown microscopic substance called astrophage is consuming it and shutting it down, and if a solution isn't found, Earth will enter an ice age that will wipe out humanity within decades. Nobody expects him to come back. Then he discovers he's not alone in the universe. There's another ship nearby, and what comes next changes everything he thought he knew about the solution. The film is based on Andy Weir's novel, the same author behind The Martian, adapted by Drew Goddard, who also wrote that film. It's directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, known for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Ryan Gosling stars as Ryland Grace. The cinematography is by Greg Fraser, Oscar winner for Dune, and it was filmed specifically for IMAX. The trailer accumulated over 400 million global views, making it the most watched trailer of the year for an original film. The science fiction everyone has been waiting for in 2026. And with that, we wrap up our countdown of the 10 most important films of March. A month that starts strong from the very first weekend and doesn't let up until the end. Cult horror in shopping malls, historic franchise comebacks, family fantasy, science fiction in IMAX, and one of the most anticipated original films of the year. There's something for every kind of viewer, and that's exactly what makes March one of the most exciting months at the box office. If the video helped you out, I'd love it if you left a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. See you in the next one.